And you still have 1 minute to place your bets in the chat, and we're here in the top left-hand corner of Neo Humanity. And we have our South Korean Protoss representing himself. This madman is teamless, despite being one of the best Protoss in South Korea. Definitely deserving to be on a team, but here representing himself, it is Classic. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player representing CranKy Gaming. It is Dark. The best Zerg player in all of South Korea. Vámonos, papi, vámonos. And we have already seen some Dark on Neo Humanity earlier today. We were lucky enough to cast Dark versus Estrella, and we saw Dark with a very aggressive build overall, taking the center base, taking advantage of the gas, spreading creep, and powering through these rocks. But alas, here against Classic, he's taking a more conservative approach. He is going for his natural expansion on location instead. So we're not going to be rushing into that rich Vespene gas geyser. We're not going to be seeing too many signs of aggression initially from Dark. As he gets into his standard hatch gas pool opener, nothing too crazy. But this is important to bear in mind because Dark, he is one of the more aggressive players out there, more so than Cyril, more so than Raynor, and he's willing to go for these fast pool openers, for this fast gas openers as well. So important for Classic to keep an eye on this and make sure he's aware of what Dark is up to. As back at home, Classic is going for a standard gate expand as well, and we'll see what Classic has in store for us. The reason why I'm such a Classic fanboy nowadays, like, we've seen so much of Classic over the past couple of months, like multiple times a week as well, as we are live quite often here on this channel. Yeah, Classic, he's such a versatile player. Like, he's such a hero clone. I don't want to say that in the sense that, like, oh, he's just copying hero, but like, he has such good control and good micro. On top of that, he's very flexible with his builds. He can be a very unpredictable player, going for Twilight Council openers, going for even old school Robo openers. That's what surprised us last week as we were casting Classic in the KSL and in ESL Open Cup Asia. Classic was going for these old school Robo builds with like these Sentry Immortal pushes, like Soul Train Parting-esque, something that we don't see too often at the highest level of play, at the competitive level. And even Classic was whipping that out. So yeah, he can be very unpredictable, and as a result, he can be very difficult to read. It's going to be on Dark to try to keep up with him, to try and make sure he gets his scouting information that he needs and is able to keep up with the likes of Classic. For the time being, first Adept gets across the map, just going to be confirming the third base location, making sure that there is no two base soul in, and making sure that the third wasn't taken as the linear third or even the center third. So again, Classic just getting a lot of crucial scouting information behind this. It is going to be the Stargate opener into the Oracle. Pretty standard stuff here from Classic, despite the fact that I was bringing up how he can be very unpredictable. For the time being, standard stuff. Stargate into Oracle. This should be leading into a second Oracle and maybe even a third after that. And Classic should be looking to take his third base. As I say that, we have that Oracle, sorry, the probe on the way to expand and take that third. So again, really economic stuff here out of Classic. Of course, you can take a fast third base with this opener just because you have the Oracle to protect it from any kind of Ling harass. As I say that, the Lings are here, but the Oracle did stay at home, so the Lings can't really do too much. Ideally, Dark wants to try to trick the Oracle and force the activation of the Pulsar Beam and kind of feign aggression. But now we have a second Oracle. We have some good SimCity here as well. The Adept will defend, and now the Oracles are free to go across the map. Back at home, Dark is getting ready for the defense. He has two Queens here at his third base, so more than enough to fend off these Oracles, but the transferring workers are being caught out. One drone does go down, a second drone as well. Oh god, and this is getting a little bit out of hand as the Oracle does take a lot of hits, but it will survive. 5 drones fall for just some shield and hull damage. At the same time, we do have a Ling counterattack, and we will be able to shut down that first Adept, but there are only 3 Lings remaining. Classic is going to be able to get back home in time, and he will clean this up. So far, a good start here from Classic. Behind this, Dark is going for a fast Evo Chamber into +1 melee, and this is the typical response against +1 Blink Stalkers, but it is not Blink Stalkers. We're going into Charge instead. So Classic is going to be mixing up his follow-up. Is going to be going into Charge Lots and Archons. Oh, meanwhile, the wall's not quite a wall. The Lings, they do get a surround here. There is no shield battery either. Classic being punished for cutting some corners. Does force the Oracles to turn back around once again, wasting even more energy. And it may not seem like the biggest of deals, but again, we're forcing the Oracles away from the mineral lines, away from dealing economic damage, and even scatting the tech of Dark. As more Lings are flooding across the map again, just to keep Classic back at home and in check. Meanwhile, there's that Templar Archives that we were talking about. So again, it is Charged Archon from Classic. And in a way, Classic has rolled the dice well, and Dark not so much. Mass Ling Bane or even +1 Lings, they can struggle so much more against Archons and Zealots. But as we get into +2 melee, these Lings can of course do a great job at harassing and wreaking havoc in mineral lines. As Dark is going to have to divert his tech and focus a little more heavily on Roach production instead. Roach, Ravager, Ling Bane should be the composition of choice here from Dark. Behind this, Classic is taking up even further. He's going towards that Robotic Spay, working on +1 melee, +1 attack as it's about to finish up. And Classic is going to be harassing here with only a couple of these Archons. A bit of a delayed Archon drop, if you will. This is just to keep pressure on Dark. He is taking a 4th base behind this, so he's not all in by any means. He's just trying to force a reaction and trying to trade as best he can. But there are plenty of Roaches waiting for him. Oh, the Lings, they come in for a surround as well. Classic is not going to find any damage whatsoever. He's going to be able to keep his Archons alive, but he's going to be bleeding out these Zealots and Adepts. Oh, so, not the best trades here from Classic. He still has those Archons alive, but oh my god, I spoke too soon! No! Oh, he was a little bit too inattentive. The Prism goes down, and so will one of the Archons. An amazing pickoff here from Dark. Classic just a little bit distracted, maybe going back to macro back at home and establish his 4th base, was punished hard for it. Great queen position, great foresight from Dark to be in position at the time. And just like that, Classic, he loses any kind of map presence he would otherwise have. He's trying to power through these towers, trying to give himself enough breathing room to establish his 4th base. But it's go time for Dark. Not like this, Vibe, not like this. Thankfully, the Disruptors are coming out in time, so he will have a couple defensively for the initial assault here from Dark. As he gets his 4th base up and running, 5th on the way as well. Baneliness has now concluded. And Classic, this is him admitting that, you know what, I can't push out. I'm going to be taking a more defensive role here. Classic, he throws down a 2nd Stargate and a Fleet Beacon. He's going to be turtling up to Skytoss. Oh, lovely. As I say that, a field of shield batteries get thrown down. We have stasis traps on the way as well. Can Dark break a Classic before the carriers can get into the mix? We're here to find out. Novas are going to be going off. Baneling's speed is still not done. Without it, these Banelings are going to have a hard time waddling up into these bases. Dark has to back off. Thankfully, we have a Spire on the way. Even though Dark hasn't scattered the main base at all this game, he recognizes that, hey, he's like the biggest threat to him right now is Skytoss, so he's getting ready for that. He's also recognized that Classic has taken a very defensive position. He is fortified on these 4 bases, so he knows that could only mean one thing. Of course, higher tech, late game, carriers. Meanwhile, the Baneling waddle buys are upon us. Baneling's speed is going to finish up in a couple of seconds, just in time for this run by. For the time being, Dark is trying to distract the main army here on the front lines. He wants to keep Classic's attention here on his army. Baneling's going to be going off. Baneling run by does not go scouted. Does not get scouted. No reactions whatsoever. The mineral line does go down. At the same time, Dark laying siege upon that forward base. He's trying to get on top of the Disruptors. He will not be able to do so. He is being forced back, but that was worth it. Again, just mainly a big distraction for the run by. Oof. Beautifully timed Disruptors do go off on those Banelings. And Classic is going to be pushing out a little bit. A bit of an overextension here from our Protoss player. Does want to be careful. Oh, but his economy did take a massive hit, but the carriers have arrived. Thankfully, Dark did spot that first carrier, so we have +1 air attack on the way. We have Corruptors in production. Ooh, this is a late infestation pit, though. That did slip by, or that did slip Dark's mind. Without it, we don't have Hive Tech, which means we don't have Vipers either, so this is going to give a bit of breathing room here to Classic. Dark can't be as aggressive as he would have liked to, or if it's going to be a little bit riskier to be aggressive here without Vipers. As he tries to go for another Baneling run by, but no, Classic is ready for it this time. Does leave a couple of Archons here in position, as that's not stopping Dark from trying. He's just going to keep sending wave after wave of Banelings over towards that third base. But again, not going to find too much success here. As Dark does also want to eventually get rid of these roaches. Not too soon, though, as he's going to be threatening another push. Banelings that roll on into the mineral line. No reaction! Where they as the center base is going to be going down, or the mineral line is going to be going down. Classic, his attention was on the main army, and yeah, those Banelings were somehow able to avoid his attention. Dark able to remax somehow, someway. I'm so impressed. Even though Classic is focusing on nothing but defense, like he's not pushing out at all. He's not going for any counterattacks. He is just focusing on turtling. Despite that, Dark is still finding damage. Meanwhile, he's buying time. Hive still on the way. We still need more time to get into that Hive Tech, to get into those spellcasters. We also still have a little bit too many roaches. We need to throw them away at some point to free up some supply. Nova's going to be going off. Decent connections here from Classic. At the same time, the Corruptors try to catch some of these reinforcing carriers, but they don't find any. Oh, once again. Once again. Oh, Classic. A little bit inattentive. Oh my god, as he even throws away his prism. He's falling apart. The aggression is just a little bit too much as Banelings do roll into the main base. The Cyber Core is under threat as well. Does get close to being sniped. Dark is just all over him, and he's even able to catch one of these carriers. There is an overcharge, so the carrier will survive. Dark has to be careful not to throw away too many Corruptors here in this run by. Flyby even. Oh, as his Corruptors are being caught out a little bit. He does catch one carrier, so it does make it worth it. But he doesn't want to throw everything away. Oh, he's going to be able to get a second carrier as well. Classic fighting without the support of his shield batteries. At the same time, a Baneling run by. This time, it doesn't just get the mineral line, it also gets the Nexus. Oh my god. Dark at the 4th, at the 5th, does force a cancel. Dark will lose every single one of his Corruptors, so that's a little bit worrying. But he's remaxing, he's rebuilding, and Classic doesn't have enough momentum for a counterattack. But he's being forced into it. He has lost so much. Classic is basically all in. And did Dark poke the bear? Is he ready for this counterattack? He's still rebuilding his Corruptors. He doesn't have that much anti-air. Lings are coming in from behind. They get a surround on those Disruptors. The Disruptors will be falling, but the Corruptors are melting. The Archon's doing a great job at supporting these carriers, and GG gets called. Classic will take game number 1. Dark, he forced the all-in. He forced the counterattack from Classic, and even though Dark was doing a great job at sniping mineral lines, getting bases, getting some of these reinforcing carriers, he wasn't ready for the all-in. He wasn't ready for the counterattack. He lost all of his Corruptors when harassing across the map, and he just didn't have enough. GG. GG, well played. That is the danger of Neo-Humanity as well. Because Neo-Humanity is so small, we saw that from base to base, those center bases, they're like a screen apart. A Protoss counterattack doesn't take long at all. In a couple of seconds, it's already in your face, it's already in your bases. And, yeah, Dark was punished a little bit for how overzealous and cavalier he was. GG. Ooh. Classic takes the lead in the series and is 1 game away from making it to the Grand Finals. I'm smudging a little bit inside, like I'm a Zerg player, and I've been there before. Like you're doing everything right, you know, you're doing all these flips, all these tricks, like you're harassing so well, you're crippling the economy of your opponents. But, you know, you're kind of putting them in a really desperate position, right? You're forcing them to make these calls that they otherwise wouldn't, and at that moment, Dark was at his most vulnerable. And yeah, Classic was able to take full advantage of that. It happens, it happens. GG. GG. I see the chat catching up. Wow. Wow, indeed. As we're going to be loading into game number 2, which will be taking place on Babylon. But yeah, I think everything was fine from Dark. I do think that harassing with his Corruptor army was a bit too much. Because for those who don't know, Corruptors actually take a long time to rebuild. So as he was losing them, it was just taking a little bit too long to replace them as well. So I do think he was just having a little bit too much fun. And it happens, Papi, it happens. But here we go, spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Babylon. We have the South Korean Protoss player leading the series 1-0. One of the best Protoss in all of South Korea. It is Classic. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Babylon, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player, the best Zerg in all of South Korea, but one game away from being eliminated in the semifinals from his tournament run ending. He has to bring it back here and now. Representing CranKy Gaming, it is Dark. Oof. And it takes a professional player to shake off a loss like that and to very quickly dive into the next game. I'm sure Dark isn't too phased by it. I'm sure it's definitely affecting him a little bit, but you know, Dark has a wealth of experience under his belt, and I'm sure he is able to shake off that first game and get into game 2 with a fresh mind. As we do have a hatch gas pool opener, Classic was able to force the unnatural natural out of Dark, so as a result, something like Glaive Adepts can have a little bit more success on Babylon, but I don't expect Classic to really go into that direction with his tech. We'll see. Babylon, by the way, is a map that is very prone to all-ins. I can't remember the amount of times that we've seen Dark go for a Roach Queen all-in. You waddle across the map, especially with these center rocks being knocked down at the third base locations. It doesn't take long at all to waddle Queens across the map and commit to an all-in, or even go for a Nidus all-in as well. Time and time again, especially against Hero, Dark is very aggressive on this map. Now, just because he always all-ins Hero on Babylon doesn't mean he'll do it against Classic, but, you know, it's on the table at least. It is on the table, and something to bear in mind, and it's something that I'm sure Classic is also mindful of. So we'll be keeping an eye on the creep spread, on the Queen count, and more importantly on the drone count as well, to see when Dark does cut workers, if at all. Meanwhile, Classic is doing Classic things. Stargate open. Nothing too crazy. We're not going to be, despite having a lead in this series, he's not going for a Twilight Council opener. He's not going to be baited into aggression. You love to see it. So with this, should be an Oracle opener into a third base. Nothing too crazy. Babylon, of course, being a larger map compared to Neo Humanity, but a little bit more exposed. The bases are quite spread out, and these fringe bases, like taking a 5th base, can be quite difficult for both players, just because counterattacks are so common as well if we do get into a longer game. Meanwhile, Dark is making a decent amount of lings right now, so he is looking to try and punish and even delay this third. We go, the lings are being sent out across the map. Behind this, Dark is droning, is taking his third base, so nothing too crazy, but did just invest into these lings early on, and this is going to be setting Dark behind economically, at least a little bit. He wants to try to make it worth it. As behind this, we have our first Oracle, second Oracle on the way, and Classic is setting up for his third base. Just looking to ferry that probe over. Meanwhile, Dark is here. He does focus on that probe, and he will delay the third. So again, he does make these Lings a little bit worth it. He also forces the activation of the Pulsar Beam as well, so a lot of wasted energy on this first Oracle. And oh my. Do you see what I see? I don't see a Twilight Council. I see a Robo follow-up instead, so Classic gonna be mixing things up quite a bit here. So with this Robo opener, we can go into a couple of different directions. We can go into, say, a Sentry Immortal push with fast Immortal production. We can also throw down a Robotics Bay and get into fast Disruptor or even Colossi production as well. Regardless, this is going to be very aggressive from Classic. Delaying a Twilight Council, and yeah, he's getting into his Gateway Explosion as well. Typically means that Classic isn't looking further into this game. He won't have as much longevity. There are those Sentries on the way. We should be seeing a Prism and some Immortals. There we go. Immortal production has commenced. So I was talking about this earlier at the start of the series about how unpredictable Classic can be, and this is something that not a lot of Protoss players are doing right now. This is very out of meta. This old school Soul Train Immortal Sentry push is something that Classic has been throwing in and mixing in mid-series from time to time, and yeah, it's just very out of left field. As the Oracles get a couple of drone kills, but they do manage to escape with their lives just barely. Meanwhile, there's the Gateway Explosion. Oh my god, 4 gateways on the way, in addition to the 4 that we already have. So it's going to be an 8-gate all-in. Of course, there's no charge, there's no blink, there's no glaives. It's just going to be Immortal Sentry and, you know, vanilla gateway units. Very committed. This third base is basically a fake. There's no saturation here at all. The third base is just designed to force Dark to be a little bit too economic and a little bit too greedy. Dark, he goes for a link counterattack. He sees the sentries. He also sees the lack of workers. Dark should now know that it's an all-in. But is it too late? That's the question. That's a lot of sentries. Dark, he's making as many roaches as he can. He's making nothing but links. He's cutting workers here at 54, which is still an acceptable amount of workers to cut. I don't think that Dark has overdroned, but he's taking his gases as we speak. He doesn't really have the gas income to sustain too many roaches, so we'll see if he can pull this off. Ravagers are being produced as well. They will help out with those sentries, with those force fields. As Classic is rocking up. Looking to attempt a supply block. Dark. Ooh, this Roach Warren is very exposed. A very unfortunate position here for Dark. The Roach Warren goes down. Only Lings can be produced. Speaking of, the Lings go for a mass round. Ravagers are trying to get on top of this army, but they barely are. Vials will be connecting. Oh my god, they take down every single sentry. The Vials were insane. The Lings were able to lock them down, and just like that, this push is being shut down. The Queens waddle on forward. They do threaten that Prism. The Immortal doing a lot of damage in the back line, but there are too many reinforcements. Even though Dark can't make any roaches, he has more than enough to defend. Oof. The surround was beautiful. Just make sure that Classic could not escape the threat of those Vials, ensuring that they connected on those sentries. And just like that, Classic is in a really rough position. He's trying to saturate his third, but he's down economically. He doesn't have a Twilight Council, he doesn't have a Forge, so he doesn't have any upgrades. He's going to have a hard time getting into the mid-game. The one thing that he has is the Robo. So he's getting into a fast Robotics Bay to get into Disruptor production. He's getting to a second Robo as we speak. So 2 Disruptors can be built at a time, and that is a way to come back into this game, but it's a really risky move, but it's the only move. Like, what else can Classic really flex here? What else can he make use of when it comes to what he has available to him? So Disruptors obviously have a lot of potential. They're high risk, high reward units. They can connect, and hey, if Dark is unable to split in time, Classic can make up for a 30 supply deficit. Even more than that. Like, Disruptors can definitely bring you back in a game. But Disruptors don't shoot up, and I think it's very smart here to go for the Spire. Dark, he's going for the Spire. He has mutas available, and this is kind of the checkmate. The reason for that, there's no Phoenixes. There's a delayed Twilight Council, which means no blink. Disruptors don't shoot up. There's no Templar Archives for Archons. There is just very limited anti-air available here for Classic. But that's also why it's so important to scout. And here we go. The Adepts do shade into the main base, so they do get dropped in, and they do see the Spire. Now Classic knows. Now cannons are on the way. Very important scout here for Classic. Otherwise, the mutas may have just ended the game. We have Phoenixes in production. We have Blink being chronoed as we speak as well. Classic is now getting ready for said mutas. And he should be able to muster up enough anti-air in time. The mutas are able to shut down the Prism at least, but the amount of economic damage they can get done is far lower now, as they are no longer a surprise. Now, bearing in mind that Blink still isn't done, so the Stalkers are going to have a hard time rotating and keeping up with the movement of these mutas. As I say that, the Stalkers are at the third, mutas dive into the natural. Thankfully, again, there is a cannon in position, so that is going to chip away at these mutas. 7 probes are still going to be going down. A Phoenix as well. Oof. And despite seeing this ahead of time, so much damage is being done. 11 probes go down, but we also did invest into 15 mutas, so we got to make these mutas worth it. Oof. As we get even more probes here at the third base, and Dark is committing to the muta play. He's going for +1 air attack. He's going for Ling muta. And this is something that can snowball out of control. If you do get enough mutas, it doesn't matter if you have Phoenixes, you can go toe-to-toe and reset the Phoenix count. As we saw, there's only 3 Phoenixes right now. The Stalkers still have a hard time maneuvering around the terrain to keep up with muta clouds as well. Mass muta is something you don't see too often in ZVP, but whenever you see it, it can be quite impressive. Be very overwhelming. As so far we are up to 25 mutas. At the same time, Lings are looking to harass that third base. The mutas are going to be distracting the main army. We do force a blink. The disruptors are exposed. And one of these disruptors, 2 disruptors do go down at the same time. The Lings wreaking havoc at the third base. Classic completely out of position. And the Phoenixes are left a little bit idle. 2 of them do go down. The third base will be saved, but we did lose every single worker. 15 probes did get picked off. And we're making more mutas. 11 more mutas in production. Again, a lot of this is possible just because of the openers, just because Classic did go for a failed all-in. It does give Dark the freedom to pull this off. As Classic moves out, Dark moves in. Third base is going to be going down. Classic is going all in. He's committed. He's not going to be turning around. We're going for the base trade. Base trading against mutas is a hard thing to pull off again. And GG gets called. Dark fights back in this series and he takes game number 2. GG. Again, it was a very scary moment when we saw Classic basically go for the fake third base and go all in with that Immortal Sentry push. But Dark was able to recognize what was happening in time. And tie up the series. We're now going to the ace match, game number 3. Meanwhile, we're just getting a couple of updates from the upper semifinals. Again, both semis did begin at the same time, and it sounds like Hero versus Ragnarok may have ended, but I don't know what the score is. Yeah, it looks like it did end. The challenge page has not been updated, but you know what? I'll check Wikipedia. Is it updated there? It is. So, these matches were covered by Chicken Man and I think Dave Testa as well. So, Hero versus Ragnarok has concluded and Hero does take down Ragnarok 2-0. Hero is waiting in the grand finals for the winner of this series, either Classic or Dark. Again, be sure to check out both Dave Testa and Chicken Man and the other casters that were covering that series. If you want to watch those VODs, they're going to be available on their Twitch channels and maybe uploaded to YouTube. I know they aren't as consistent with their YouTube uploads. They kind of pick and choose, but it's all on Twitch. It's all on Twitch, so be sure to check them out there. As we are going to be continuing our own series, continuing with our own semifinals. Let's go. Oh. And we're just getting ready for this. It looks like the map has been chosen, and Game 3 is going to be taking place on Ancient Cistern. So we're going to have a little bit more breathing room. We've been going for some of these smaller maps and having aggression as a result. But now we're going to be seeing some more macro play, potentially, as we get into Ancient Cistern. I'm getting some flashbacks. So we did cast Dark versus Classic a couple of days ago in the Kung Fu Cup. And the last time we saw Dark versus Classic, it was in the finals. Was it Kung Fu Cup or ESL Asia? I think it may have been ESL Open Cup. It may have been ESL Asia. Yep, there we go. So we were able to cast Dark versus Classic a couple of days ago in the finals of ESL Open Cup Asia. It was a best of 5. And the last time we saw Dark on this map against Classic, Dark went for a very ambitious kind of playstyle, and it worked quite well. It's something that Dark does on large maps like Ancient Cistern and Altitude. He goes Mass Ling Bane, gets map control, just over-invests, just keeps the Protoss player at home, and techs up back at home into Hive Tech, into Ultras. Ling Bane into Ultra in ZVP. It can work very well, especially if the Protoss player goes for +1 Blink Stalkers. If we don't have a charged out Archon composition, then Dark can have so much freedom on this map because it's so large, because there are so many attack paths, so many ways to surround the Stalker army and go for these counterattacks as well. And if Dark can get away with not making any roaches, he will. He loves it, Bob. He loves it. So we'll see if we get that here today as well. As we are getting into this and spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Ancient Cistern, we have the South Korean Protoss player here in the Ace match, looking to make a finals run here in the KSL week number 14. We have Classic. And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Ancient Cistern, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player representing CranKy Gaming, tying up the series 1-1 in that last game, looking to pull off the reverse sweep to make it to the finals. It is Dark. And here we go. Once again, Classic has arrived to force the unnatural natural out of Dark, just making things a little bit awkward in the early game. But it's as to be expected. It's pretty standard nowadays. Recently, we have seen the rise in popularity of 15 hatch openers, and Dark does do the 15 hatch on Neo Humanity. I don't think I've seen him do it on large maps like Ancient Cistern before. I know Cyril and Raynor and Solar have adopted this, Ragnarok as well, but it's not. They don't do it as consistently as Eric, for example. As for those wondering, the 15 hatch is when you make a gas geyser, you make a drone, you cancel the gas, so you have 15 out of 14 supply, and you go for a very early hatchery here. It's designed to counteract this probe. The probe gets here a little bit too late, so you do get your base on location, and you also get queen production a little bit faster as well as a result. So it's a build that has been quite popular over the past couple of weeks, and a lot of Zerg players have been playing around with it in ZVP and even in ZVT as well. I think recently on stream, Cyril was saying that he was finding quite some success, and he actually liked it against Terran as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see Eric's builds kind of shine through and get a lot of popularity in the international scene in Europe and Korea as well. But in this game, Dark doesn't do it. Just a hatch gas pool, standard timings, everything's normal. Likewise, Dark also pulls out a gas as well after that first 100, so he's only getting link speed and he's not really looking to be overly aggressive from here. As we're getting into our ace match, Classic once again going for the Stargate opener, but as we saw last game, just because it's a Stargate opener doesn't mean it's going to be standard play. Last game he showed us that he is willing to go for all-ins. An all-in on Ancient Cistern though, not the wisest of choices. Ancient Cistern, for those wondering, it is the second largest map in the map pool, second only to Altitude because of the rush distance, because of how much time you have to react and respond. These early game all-ins are typically ill-advised on Ancient Cistern. Or typically they're more reliant on the surprise factor more than anything, just because they do take a little bit longer to execute. There's there's some give and take with that. Until then, again, everything's looking quite standard. Classic setting up for his third base to be taken on location. The Adepts are just looking for any kind of stray lings. Speaking of, the wall is not a wall. The lings, they do flood on in. The Adepts out of position, and now some probes are under threat. One probe will go down. Can we get a second? We cannot. Lings do go into the main. They're pushed back, though, as the Oracle is revealed. We now know about the Stargate opening. Not just that, we also force the activation of the Pulsar Beam as well, so wasted energy here by Classic. At the same time, though, those two Adepts that were missing at home are across the map. Ooh. And this is well worth it. For the first two Adepts to get 4 drone kills, even though Classic got scattered, even though Classic lost the probe, Classic does come out better in that trade. Oof. Now he's free to expand and take that third base. Lings show up, but the wall is a wall this time. Oh, or is it? I spoke too soon. Does force a cancel on that pylon. These Lings doing so much for Dark. Once again, going to be forcing a reaction out of this Oracle. We need to activate the beam, by the way. There we go. We do force the activation. Just needed a couple of seconds to actually have enough energy for it. It's third. Getting quite low. Aye, aye, aye. Behind this, Dark is droning. He's saturating his bases. Getting to a fast Evo chamber with +1 melee on the way. So with this, again, he's going to have a head start to deal with those Blink Stalkers if that is our transition for Classic. Meanwhile, the Lings are looking for another way in, but they are deterred by these Adepts, as this time the Adepts stay at home. Things are going to be calming down. Oh my. And Dark is going for a very fast Baneling Nest. This Baneling Nest is not at a standard time at all. This could be a safety Baneling Nest, just because he doesn't know if there's a Glaive Adept follow-up. He doesn't know what the transition is going to be. So it could be for safety, but Dark is still making a lot of Lings, and he could be going for a Bane bust of his own. As he cuts workers at 51. You have a lot of Overlords on the way as Dark is a little bit supply blocked. And it's going to be on Classic to figure out what is going on. Adepts are threading a shade in towards the natural. They commit to the shade. Ooh, and the Adepts are going to be going down, but not before they get a couple of drone kills. 2 drones go down, and Dark is committed, by the way. He's cut workers at 51 for the past couple of moments, past couple of minutes, and Dark is making nothing but Ling Bane. Banelings are on the way. These Oracles, though, they do a lot of counter damage, and they're forcing Dark to re-drone. It is taking a bit of a sting out of this push. Lings are looking to distract the army. Banelings are waddling into the mineral line. Up! We do have a reaction out of Classic. He does pull away in time. Oh, but the Banelings, they detonate anyway, and we get a full surround on these Stalkers. There is no blink. The Stalkers are going to be going down. We may not have gotten the mineral line, but this is still a good trade for Dark. Got a handful of probes. We basically cut the Stalker count in half, and that is going to give Dark the freedom to re-drone, and he is doing what we were talking about. He does want to go Ling Bane into Ultras. He's throwing down a safety Roach Horn, though, to be fair, so we'll see if he invests into that, but still just heavily committed into these Lings. Once again, a full surround. Blink finishes up in a couple of seconds. The shield battery isn't quite done yet. And this is a bit of an overextension from Dark. Oh, he does lose a lot of Lings in the process. A little bit overzealous. Behind this, Classic, he's backing off. He's getting into double robo production into a bay. Meanwhile, there's that infestation pit. My theory is that I think that this Roach Horn is just for safety in case he needs it. I don't think he wants to invest into roaches. It's +2 melees on the way. We have a macro hatchery. We have the infestation pit. We'll see if he does invest and actually make roaches, or if he rushes into his hive. As Classic is stuck at home because of the mass Lings of Dark. Classic, he just can't move out. If he ever does, he's going to lose his army. Lings annihilate Blink Stalkers, and they require Oracles to defend them. But Classic hasn't continued Oracle production. He stopped at 2, which means he can't be active with his Stalkers at all. Meanwhile, there's that hive. Show us the Ultras, Bobby. Show us the Ultras. Lings once again getting a nice surround on these Stalkers, doing some whole damage as well, picking off whatever they can, keeping Classic at home. Oh my god, 4 Stalkers go down. Dark, he just finds damage at every turn. Yeah, and now we have confirmation. +1 carapace, not +1 ranges on the way, so it was just a safety Roach Warren, just in case he needed it, just in case Classic was overly aggressive. Dark would have the option to make some defensive Roaches. And Ravagers, more importantly. Oh, the Colossus! Oh, the Colossus almost gets caught out. Barely holds onto its shields. As the wall is not a wall, Dark is just so active with his Lings, and he just finds an opportunity time and time again. He slips into the natural, he slips into the main base as well. We have Lings threatening the 4th base, keeping Classic's attention on the front lines. And Extended Thermal Lance is going to finish. Oh, thank God. It looked like the Bay could be focused now, but no, it will survive. Now, this is where I'm a little bit concerned. Dark just threw away a lot. As you can see here on the Units Lost tab, 51 Lings. 51 Lings just went down for what? We kept Classic at home, but we only got a handful of units, 4 probes and 2 stalkers. Not a good trade. We saw this in game 1. If Dark is a little bit too careless with his harassing forces, and if he throws away too much, he will trigger a counterattack, and he may just straight up die. Again, just like game 1. Meanwhile, there's the Ultra Cavern. Dark needs time. He's still like... Ultras take a long time to produce. We need the Ultra Cavern, we need Kindness Plating, we need Ultra Speed. It takes a long time to get into this, but we're almost there. Dark just needs a little bit more breathing room here to actually get into his Ultra production, and there we go. 4 Ultras are on the way. These Lings were just a stepping stone, but as the Ultras come out, Classic is pushing in. And he's got 4 Colossi. He's got a devastating army, and we'll see if Dark has been able to cut enough corners to get away with this. He goes for a Ling counterattack. The 4th base is under threat. Classic is not turning around. Lings are looking to come in from behind, but these Colossi just doing so much. Dark gets supply blocked. That's it. He can't make anything else. What you see is what you get. The 4 Ultras are on the way. Classic is forcing himself into the natural. Oh, here we go. The Ultras are coming in, but they're stuck at the ramp. Lings also coming from behind. The Colossi are getting surrounded. And it looks like Dark may just have enough. The Colossi get focused down. Only 2 of them survive, but the Ultras come out just in time. That was the window. That was the moment for Classic to end the game. And he almost did. He almost broke into the natural before the Ultras came out. That was such a crisp timing from Dark. He was just barely able to get away with it. And now that the Ultras have arrived, Dark survives. He also was able to cancel the 4th base at the same time, so Classic is stuck on a 3-base economy. His Colossi count was reset. He only has 1 Colossus left, just barely surviving with that Prism. And Classic lost a lot of momentum. He has very little longevity in this game. He's getting into double Immortal production, which can work well against the Ultras, but Dark is on the cusp of maxing out. He has 4 bases up and running. He should be working on his 5th soon. There we go. We are going to be, I imagine, double expanding shortly to make sure we can get our economy going. Kindness Plating is now done. We should be seeing Ultra Speed soon. +2 Carapace and +3 melee on the way. So Dark is just going to be refining his army before he does go for the killing blow or go for his next big push. Shout out as well to the 1 hero Swarm Host. Even the best of the best do it. Just a little bit of a misclick, a little bit of a... It's sad, but this Swarm Host, you're a mistake. Oh, I feel so bad saying that to him. We love you, Papi. We love you. We'll take care of you, Papi. We'll take care of you. As the accidental Swarm Host is, you know, a staple amongst Zerg players. Look, we were panicking, okay? The panic Swarm Host. Aye. Behind this Dark, he's just double expanding as we speak, taking his 5th and 6th, droning up, taking more gases, just waiting for those upgrades to finish up as well. There's that Overlord speed. I always forget what it's called. I know Kindness Plating is armor, but I even know like Seismic Spines is lurker range. Adaptive Talents is lurker burrow speed. But what is Ultra Speed? I don't know. Oh my god, as a slow Baneling Waddle Blast somehow slips in, 13 probes go down. There wasn't even Baneling speed for that. It's still on the way. So Dark is just not letting Classic back into this game at every turn. He's just harassing time and time again. Speaking of harassing, we have that 1 Swarm Host and some Ultras going to be hitting the third base of Classic, forcing a reaction out of his opponent. The main army pushing in towards the fourth. He's going to be deflected. The Ultras, they push in. Go, Swarmhost, go. Get involved. Oh, as the space is completely exposed at the same time, here comes the main army. We have blinding clouds covering everything Protoss. The Ultras get on top of the Stalkers, on top of the Archons, and Classic's army is just melting. The Stormhost is just chilling in the backline. It's okay, you know, he's out there exploring the world. Probes. Oh no, they're coming in! Just in time as the Banelings roll in as well. We're going to be connecting in the natural, and 38 probes go down. The third base falls. GG gets called. And Dark takes the series 2-1, advancing on to the grand finals. GG, well played. Congratulations to Dark for having an insane comeback in this series. Game 1 was a rough game. Let's be let's be real here. Game 1 was so smooth. Dark was doing everything right, and then, you know, just got a little bit too excited, a little bit too overzealous, and did go the way of Classic. But here in Game 2 and Game 3, Dark was so in control. Bearing in mind that, you know, if you're maybe a fan of Dark, you'd recognize this. On Ancient Cistern and Altitude, Dark, he has the freedom to do what he loves. And what he loves against Protoss, Ling Bane into Ultra. Whenever he can do it, he will try to whip it out. And it was pretty close this game, to be fair. It was very close. If you remember, as the Ultras were on the way, as Dark was rushing into Ultra Tech, we had 4 Colossi barreling down his front door, getting into his natural as well. That was a scary moment there because he only had Lings to defend, and Colossi, they love Lings, Pipey, they love Lings. Thankfully, Dark was able to get the surround, and the Ultras did come out in time, just at the right second, just at the right moment. Oh, and GG, well played. If they were a couple seconds too late, then the natural would have been broken. The army still would have been cleaned up, but Dark would have been in a much worse position, economically and production-wise as well. It would have been a very different game, so it went down to the wire, Poppy, went down to the wire. With that, GG, well played. We have our finalists, and we can take this moment to have a look at the bracket as well. Exclamation mark B in the chat if you want to have a look at the bracket yourself, as we can see the road that all these players have been going on. Oh, I also have to pay out predictions. One moment as we set this up. Choose prediction. Oh my god. 100% of the people in the chat predicted Dark. Damn, no faith for Classic. It went to the ace match, Poppy. It went to the ace match. No faith, no faith.